I won't waste your time. You all know why you're here. Let's continue solving Who is Sin?
Okay.
So, in this video, I will finally go over that game-changing clue that I alluded to in the first Sin video. By the way, check out that video and part 2 if you haven't already. But I'm gonna save that for the end, so you'll just have to watch the rest of the video for that. To kick things off, I want to go over the zombie drones tape, as I found some interesting clues. And boy, what I found surprised me. First off, when was this tape made? If JC Jensen knew about the solver before Sin, then why did it take till Sin that they began studying it? And from what we see in Cabin Fever, they seem to know little about it. Wouldn't they want to work on a patch right away? And how did they deal with any of the previous solver users? Now, considering this video had the JC Jensen in space logo, this video had to be made once they were able to mine exoplanets. Second, now prepare for a lot of math. There is something weird about this data. According to the video, there is a 0.01% chance of a self-reboot, and then from there, we have a 0.7% chance of a mutation. Assuming this mutation is referring to the absolute solver, there is a 0.00007% chance of a dead drone reviving with the solver. But it gets even worse from there. We know the absolute solver mutates and damages AI, but here's the deal. The beginning of the video shows that only 53% of drones are discarded because of damages, meaning the odds of a discarded worker drone reviving is 0.0000371%. With all this, we get a result of approximately 4 absolute solver users in every 10 million worker drones, or 1 in every 2.5 million. Now, how the fuck do you even calculate those kind of odds and still know nothing about the solver? You would need more than that to get any sort of accurate data, and be actively testing to avoid variables. So now we need to figure out how many worker drones are there, and if there was enough of a sample size. Now, thanks to the boy Tyromaniac's video on calculating how many worker drones were killed by Envy and J, we know that one corpse spire is approximately 161,601 drones. Assuming J's relay hand here is accurate, we see 5 spires. That means there are about 808,005 dead worker drones on Copper 9 alone. However, those drones were the target of a genocide, so we can assume Earth and the other exoplanets had considerably less drones. But murder drones does take place in the year 3071, so let's assume that drones have been around for 1,000 years. Now, we just have to calculate how long they last. We know worker drones start off as neural networks that learn before given a body, and considering that Uzi and her classmates are anywhere between 19 to 20, I'd imagine it takes 20 years to have a fully functional worker drone. Now, how long do they last? Well, considering Khan has been around since the fall of humanity, which again we can assume happened 20 years before the pilot, I'd guess that Khan is anywhere between 45 to 50 years old, possibly even older. So we know worker drones can last at least 50 years, on their own no less. But what is the average lifespan? Well, considering that they can work to the age of 20, but they were often abused, I will play it safe and assume they lasted about 35 years, halfway between 20 and 50. Now, we can take 1,000 and divide it by 35 years per generation, assuming each dead drone was replaced by a new one, and we get approximately 28 generations of worker drones. Assuming there is about 900,000 per generation, and we get a grand total of 25.2 million worker drones made. So, JC Jensen did have enough of a sample size. But here's the problem. I did these calculations using best case scenario of drones being made in the year 2050 and the video being made right before Sin, in possibly the year 3050. But worker drones could have came out later, or this video could have been made earlier, meaning the amount of drones could be a lot less. Even using best case scenario, data is best collected in a controlled environment. And we have way too many unknown variables. How many worker drones were actually improperly discarded? How many were damaged just enough that they would actually be able to self-reboot? How much damage needs to be done to make this possible? How many dead drones were they actively studying? When did they begin this study? We only see one spire, and Jay does say build a spire, singular, So were there really 900,000 drones on Copper 9? And even if they did somehow get this data, that still doesn't explain how they were able to deal with any previous solver users, or why they didn't have a patch ready. So we have a bit of a paradox here. If this video was made before Sin, they should know about the solver, yet clearly had no counter to when Sin attacked. But if this video was made after Sin, there is no way in hell they would be able to properly calculate this data. And I checked, this tape does not appear anywhere in Cabin Fever Labs. So, to solve this problem, I decided to look at it from a different perspective. What if, and this is a big what if, JC Jensen didn't make this video? What if it was made by Sin?
Oh yes, get snuck upon.
As usual, this is speculation, but sometimes the only way to find answers is to think outside the box, no matter how absurd it may sound. Notice how when N touches the tape, he suddenly gets flashbacks of Sin. What's more, notice how some of the text in this video is yellow, Sin's favorite color. Specifically, the word damage here is highlighted yellow, a word she has some history with.
They are not broken. We can no longer be thrown out.
And here's the kicker. Look carefully at this scene. What do you see? Sin's hand? Everyone knows about that. Yeah, that is correct, and that's important. But look here. Now, if you're saying there's nothing there, you are exactly right, because we cut to the next scene and BAM! The VHS is settling there, meaning Sin planted this tape.
Oh yes, get snuck upon.
So, here's my idea. Only the first few seconds up till we get the Zombie Drone title card was made by JC Jetson. Notice how there's a sudden glitch before the title. Also notice how Zombie Drones is just suddenly added to the first slide of the video, in yellow no less. The rest with all this data about possible reboot and mutation was possibly made by Sin, as she would probably know from personal experience, or being able to calculate the data herself. Or she just made it up. Also, Sin did have movie nights with Anne, so perhaps this logo of the Zombie Drones was inspired by some of those movies. Okay, but JC Jensen created the Absolute Solver program. That's why they already have this data. I don't think that's the case. As I said earlier, if they did create it, they should already know much more about it, or have some sort of counter ready. And I'm much more inclined to believe that JC Jensen didn't create the solver, but instead harnessed the power in the form of the worker drones. This isn't a unique idea to me, and there are other great videos that explain this in detail that I suggest checking out. Okay, but it's a mutation. The solver evolved into something that they couldn't predict, so of course they wouldn't be ready. I only have one main issue with this. This is way more than a normal mutation. It would be one thing if the solver just gave worker drones the ability to bend reality by gaining a greater understanding, but it also completely changes their entire physiology, as they begin to melt in sunlight and break any mirrors they stare at. I wouldn't bat an eye at this if worker drones were organic life forms, but besides possibly the worker drone OS, these things are man-made. How does a mutation change that much that it's actually changing matter? Non-organic, non-living matter. Also, it is direct sunlight that melts them. Moonlight obviously does nothing, and the UV lights only partially melt them. Something interesting I noticed is that it's not the heat of the sun rays that melts them, but instead the actual sun rays themselves. Yes, heat keeps them sluggish, but that is only against the crab heart cores, as Sin eats planets from the core. And Earth's core is 11,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 6,000 degrees Celsius, which is equivalent to the surface temperature of the sun. Plus, there's also Braden, a drone who lives with his head literally on fire. So I think these guys can take a little bit of heat. It also seems like the drone body acts as a protective shell. We see here when Uzi melts Sin heart, the heart melts much faster in Uzi's hand. So I don't believe this is a mutation, but some greater being, aka the true Absolute Solver, completely transforming them. Now, why did Sin make this video? I believe she made it for her murder pets who believe they're working for JC Jetson, so they can be indoctrinated into why they have to properly disassemble worker drones. After all, they are called disassembly drones. And as Jay once said,
worker drones are corrupted and that's why the company sent us.
Now, before you say this whole video was made by JC Jensen because it shows the Mark for Disassembly armband, that is only the beginning, the part that I do believe they made. And speaking of Sin's armband, This thing is actually much more important than I first realized. You see, this is the only item Sin had before awakening as the Absolute Solver. Despite everything, this is the one memento that Sin has kept her entire life, and it's clearly important to her, as she goes even as far as making her own brand of armbands for the murder drones. Now, if they all kept their original armbands, or they all got new ones, I wouldn't think twice about it. But the fact of the matter is, Sin kept hers, and she kept hers as a reminder of those who discarded her, and as a mark of rebellion, as she went on to take the ones who were to be discarded and made them into the discarders of mankind. As I mentioned numerous times by this point, Sin wants to be the true Absolute Solver wielder, and I believe she made this video for a murder drone army on how to properly disassemble worker drones to ensure none of them would come back as Absolute Solver users that can oppose her. Okay, that's everything. Now, to finally talk about the game-changing clue. I didn't find this clue in murder drones. To find this clue, we have to look at Liam's older work. Nope, I mean even older than that.
I nervously followed, glancing at the Cheeto in my hand one more time before carefully putting it in my mouth. It tasted like a regular Cheeto.
Most people already know about Liam's animation channel where he uploaded his first cartoons, Let's Split Up, Cliffside, and Internecion Cube. But many people are unaware of his first channel where he first started YouTube. Scary Storytime with Liam. Yes, the guy who creates horror shows started off as a creepypasta writer. Shocker, I know. Now, this is also where Liam began his first long-term series, and in total, he has written 4 multi-parted series. All at least 9 parts and over 4.5 hours long. But there's one series in particular I want to focus on for this video. The granddaddy of all things Liam Vickers, his first long story ever written, Design. A lot of the tropes that Liam is known and loved for, Design did first, including murder waifus. Seriously, he does that a lot. Now, normally I would say go check out Design before watching this video. I mean, you should. It's a fun story, and honestly great seeing Liam's humble beginnings and how far he has come. But I understand not all of you have time to listen to a 12+ hour long audiobook that was never finished. Yeah, spoiler warning I guess, but SSTWL was discontinued in 2020, and out of his 4 series, 2 of them ended midway, and 1 never got a second season, and is privated, meaning you have to find archives. By the way, huge shout out to Asher for the archives, and only 1 got an actual ending. By the way, spoiler warning for Design in this video. Now, what is Design? The story follows these powerful parasites known as left hands that plant themselves on the base of a young girl's spine and gives them superhuman abilities. We see this world through the eyes of our protagonist, John Matthews. Not to be confused with John Matthews from A Cold Love Story, Yellow Halogen, The Alaska Series, How Do I Sleep, Mistrust Game, Vampires in Romania, Black Dogs, PuppetGame, or John Matthews from Design Season 3 Homebound Arc. Wait, what? Yeah, it's an ongoing joke that Liam names all his protagonists John Matthews, and usually ends up killing him off. Oh, and yeah, Design ends up having a multiverse plot in Season 3, but we really never get to learn much about that due to the season ending midway, but I'm getting ahead of myself. John accidentally enters a secret government facility where he finds Callie, a left-hand parasite wielder with chains attached to her body, who has been weaponized to fight other left hands. Now that we got the basic plot out of the way, we can go over what a left-hand parasite is. For starters, it gives the wielder an extremely powerful form of telekinesis called matter distortion. What's more, the user can use this ability to rebuild their body at a molecular level. Some so powerful, they can instantly disassemble their own body and reassemble it in a different location, effectively teleporting. However, matter distortion cannot be used against other left-hand parasites, as they have a built-in feedback system that prevents them from harming each other. Now where does all that sound familiar? Telekinesis that doesn't work against other telekinesis users, and an ability to rebuild themselves? Yeah, it's clear as day that the left-hand parasites is what inspired the Absolute Solver. I mean, Liam said himself that he would reuse ideas. But the comparisons run even deeper. Left-hand parasites are categorized based on their unique abilities. Now, who was saying that the Absolute Solver users each have their own unique set of abilities? Left hands also massacre all living things around them once they awaken, similar to how Uzi did when she first fully awakened her solver. And another similarity? Both left hands and Absolute Solvers kill off the host and become the new host. Wait, what? Yeah, let me first be clear about something. This detail right here is kind of vague and has been retconned in the show. In Season 1, it was stated that left-hand parasites killed off the host's mind when it fully awakens, and pilots the body as a corpse, becoming a heartless killing machine with the sole purpose of massacring humans. This was changed in Season 2, however, when it turns out the parasite doesn't fully kill off the host's mind, but adopts it and their memories, effectively becoming the host with all their memories and personality intact, albeit slightly more sadistic. It's also implied that the host's body is now effectively dead and basically a living corpse. They no longer age, both physically or mentally. And this might explain why N sees himself as a kid, despite the fact that he's been around way before Uzi was even born. Please don't think about it too much. I love this relationship way too much to let something like this ruin it. And besides, it's not like the absolute solver wielders have a parasite living in them. That is the main core. And must be killed to fully kill off the host. This is the game-changing clue I was hinting at in the last video. Every single absolute solver wielder is already dead, and this parasite is the new host. Like seriously, when I had this revelation, I did my best to see if anyone else has made this comparison or made a video on it, and yet as far as I can tell, no one has. This is even supported by Mind Flayer lore, where the Mind Flayer plants a parasite into the host that eventually kills off the host and assimilates the host into the Mind Flayer. Some iterations even giving the host superhuman abilities. This is how the true absolute solver works. It plants some sort of organism into a drone that infects them and becomes the new host of the body. Whether it's physical or digital, I can't say for sure. But don't worry, our favorite band of killer robots are not truly dead, just assimilated by a parasite. Though, judging by how they all act the same before and after the absolute solver, it is possible that the assimilation part of the host's brain is not actually what is happening in murder drones. I mean, even in design, this was a detail that was both unclear and changed. But I do stand by the idea that this parasite is what becomes the crab hardcore. Maybe it just becomes one with the host and has no real will of its own. I'll leave this up to interpretation because it's more fun that way. And if you don't like that, bite me! So yeah, the absolute solver users might all be dead, but that doesn't necessarily change the idea that this is sin. Almost all the left-hand users in design act very human and have distinct personalities, just like the absolute solver users of murder drones. The only emotionless ones are the ones that have been heavily experimented on to have no empathy. So I don't believe dead is the proper term, but more so transformed via fusion or symbiosis. And even if it is just a parasite mimicking the host's personality, that still means what we see in the show is sin, and does what sin would do in this situation. Plus, if you make that case for Sin, you have to make that case for the rest of the cast. It's only fair. But yeah, that wraps up this video. Sin is the one we see in the show, and the absolute solver wielders are all actually maybe dead, and are all being controlled by a parasite that adopts their memories and personalities, meaning there is no difference at all, besides the fact that they now live with a magic tapeworm. Thank you all so much for watching and for being so patient with me. My only regret with this is that I was never able to come to a conclusive answer, but I had a lot of fun regardless. And I'm happy with all the lore all of you commenting in my videos and I were able to uncover. That being said, this will probably be the last video on this topic. Doesn't mean I won't be making any more videos, or even videos on murder drones, but I will revisit this mystery if something new comes up or one of you guys find something game changing. Before you go, I have one final announcement. You guys have so many great and interesting ideas that I unfortunately can't fit in these videos, so I'll be doing a stream going over your guys' comments, as well as any new ideas you guys bring up during the stream. And they don't have to be just Sin related. Feel free to share and ask me about any lingering mysteries that we can all do our best to solve. Stream date will be announced on the channel community tab, so make sure you're subscribed to catch that. Alright, that's all for real now, bye!
This rock rendition of Left Hand Design is dedicated to the corpse of a girl who only killed most of my friends and family. Callie Blushy all over the place. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.